guys, welcome back to my live channel. So in today's live, it's not going to be long, but it's going to be special. So if you've seen the caption of this live, you already have an idea about what it is. So for a while now, I have been doing monochromatic looks, and I am doing this green. But then this green is it's pretty special to me because it is inspired by the story of the Garden of Eden. So when I was thinking about this look, I was like, the Garden of Eden, okay, we can do something around that. So if you're seeing my face for the first time, hi guys, my name is Jenna. I am a makeup artist. I am a baker. I am a nail tech. I am a dancer. But most importantly, I am a Christian. So the first thing I'm going to be doing in this video, which I've already done off camera, was to prep my face, and then I went ahead and did my skin work. Now if you don't know what the skin work is, go on to my other videos and be looking out. I'm pretty sure you get recommended videos from my channel, but but more seriously, go through my channel, you see how I do my prep and then how I go ahead and do my application. Now let us get into this tutorial. So I will be using this palette from Focaleo Endless Possibilities to create this eyeshadow tutorial. So let's get on with the story time. Okay, so this eyeshadow is inspired by the Garden of Eden because when I think of the story of the creation, I think about how green it was, how nature came about, how God created every single thing. And it's just beautiful, it's amazing, right? So green is known for like fruitfulness, is known for new beginnings, is known for vegetation. So I found that this was pretty in tune with the Garden of Eden story. Now, if you've never heard of the story of the Garden of Eden, it is basically the creation of man and how he was put in the Garden of Eden. So let me just take it back a little bit. So I have gone ahead and done my brows, cleaned it up, and then now I will be going ahead with my eyeshadow primer. Now, if you've never heard about the story of creation, I'm going to start from the beginning and then I will stop at the Garden of Eden. So, if you go through your Bible, or if you go pick up a Bible and you go through the Bible and you open it, the first story you're going to see is the story of the creation. How this wonderful, beautiful, mighty being named God created the universe, created man, and he created everything as we know it, the planets, the constellation, everything we know. He created it, right? But then something is very beautiful about the way he created the world. The beginning of the Bible tells us that the earth was formless and void. That means there was nothing there. And then the Spirit of the Lord hovered over the waters. So that means there was like a dark, empty world. And then God decided to create something out of it, which is what we are seeing today. Now, he went about creating everything, and man was the last creation before he put them in the Garden of Eden. So, what did he create? Why is the Garden of Eden special, especially to humankind? So, before we get to the Garden of Eden, let's talk about the things he created. So, one thing that God created was he created the earth, he created the skies, he created the constellation, the planets, everything that we know of in the galaxy. He created. So he took his time and created it, gave it shape, gave it form. And when he did that, he made sure he breathed. Like his spirit was doing the work. going about giving things life. His word was the life that brought his word was what brought these things into life, right? So he created water, and after he created water, he put beings in the water. The animals that we see today, they were put in the water. When he created the galaxy, he created the heavenly bodies to fill them. So what does that tell you? When God creates something, a place, he usually fills it up with people who are needed for that place, which is what he did. Then he went up, he keeps the right people who are habitable for that place, in that place, or in that region that he has created. When he created the waters, he created the fish, all kinds of creatures that were meant to be in the sea. Now, although some animals are like land animals and others are like sea animals, but majority, at least 90% of the population of the sea are animals that are supposed to be there, right? So after that, he went ahead and created the land, the earth, and then he filled in terrestrial animals on the land. So when he created that, he looked and saw that it was good. And then whenever God finished creating, he looked at it and saw that it was good, and he was happy and excited about what he created. But then when he was creating all these things, he used his word. But then when he came to man, he was so intentional about man. I mean, he created everything on the first day, second day, third day, he rested. Fourth day, he rested. The fifth day, he created and rested. And then on the sixth day, he decided, I have been creating these creatures, but none looks like me. None looks like me. I want something that looks like, or I want a creature that embodies me and what I am supposed to be like, right? So then he decided, he said, let us make man in our own image. Now, if you go in depth into the Bible, then you see and understand that there is God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost, and they worked together to create this being called man. And when God did that, he was happy, and he was excited about what he had created, that this man finally is a replica of him. When he created everything else, he didn't say, let us create them in our image. No, it was only man that was created in God's image. And that is why our relationship with God matters, right? If you take the creation out of if you take the creation out of its natural habitat, it basically dies and it doesn't do well. So when you take a fish out of water, the fish dies. When you take um, when you take animals that are supposed to be in the forest out of the forest, tendency is that they don't last long outside that place. It's their natural habitat, right? Although there are some cases I say, okay, yes, but the natural habitat is to be in the forest and to survive in the forest. So it's the same thing with man. So let's go into the creation of Eden. Eden was this beautiful garden. But just before we go into the creation of Eden, I'll be showing you the colors that I'm going to use. Now, like I said, this eyeshadow is inspired by the stories of the Bible, right? Of the Garden of Eden, rather. Just the Garden of Eden. So I will be using colors that represent the things that were in the Garden of Eden. So the primary color in this look is green. So I will be using green. I have this 4 shades for my green color, but I will be using this is a dark green, and then I will be using a brown to transition. Now the first color I will be placing is the brown. Now the brown represents the earth. Now because God is wise, and because he had a full picture and an understanding on what he wanted to create, and he knew what he was going to create. He had a plan for it, that is man. So he knew that if I create this man, he has to survive on something, right? He has to feed on something, he has to have something to keep him going, right? It's just like a generator. When it's created, you have to give it all the necessary fuel, everything to keep it running. So that was the exact same thing. So I decided to use the color brown because it represents the earth. And when the Garden of Eden was created, God planted all kinds of fruit. The Bible tells us in Genesis that there were all kinds of fruit in the Bible, in the Garden of Eden. Different kind of fruits, berries, what have you. Think about what kind of fruit can you think about. They were all there in the garden, and they were all for man, because one interesting thing about when God created man is he gave man the authority to rule over everything that he had created. He said, um, I've given you this earth. Now, after God had created man, he looked and saw that everything he created had a companion, had a pair, and then he said, "It is not good for man to it's not good for man to be alone." Now, this is significant because this is how the entirety of the whole creation came together, man and woman created in God's image. And the Bible tells us that he created them, he made them male and female, right? He made them male and female in his image. So the roles, I would like to say it was already set apart for how he wanted the world to be like, what he expected it to be, how he intended. You know, like when the creators of Apple created the brand, the product, when they created the iPhone, there was a design that they envisioned for it, and that is why the Apple brand keeps on growing, because that vision remains, and it keeps on growing from it keeps on evolving, right? It keeps on evolving, but the vision remains. They wanted to create a phone that was different, they wanted to create a brand that was different, right? That is the same thing with God. He wanted to create man to be different, to be an embodiment, to be a reflection of himself, which is why he created man. And then he knew that to get this vision rolling, he wanted to populate the earth. He decided that companionship will be there to help it. So you can go fast when you're one person, but you move far when you're two or more, right? So that was his vision, and that was how Eve was created, from the side of Adam. Now, like I said, going back, the brown represent earth, right? Earth was the soil that planted and yielded so much fruit that the the man could eat and could feed himself. It was from earth that Adam and Eve got fruits that they could eat. They had foods that could nourish their body, that could nourish their soul. And on this earth too, we can see that the animals too could survive. The herbivores, the and initially, right, when when God created the world, right, there were no, according to the Bible, there were no wild animals. They were just all basically I would like to say kind of like domesticated animals, right? They were all living in harmony, staying together in the beautiful world that God had created. And this brown also um is relevant to us today, right? Because in this world, God has given us so many things that can enable us to be um, the best version of ourselves, to be the best version of who He wants us to be. And it is there for us, but we can't know it if we're not like close to Him. I mean, we can go, and the thing is, when God created the world, He had like there's a blueprint, right? And that blueprint is there, whether you believe in God or not. The blueprint is there, and if you follow the blueprint, right? If you follow the blueprint, you would have a long and you will get, you will prosper, you will get things that you're supposed to get. But then the ultimate goal for the human being isn't just to prosper and just live, right? Prosperity should be there, but your most important goal, at least according to God, is to have a relationship with Him. He created us to have a relationship with Him, to share the world that He had created us to be with Him and with others. But if we're not in close relation or partnership with God, we might spend our whole lives living, I mean, a good life, but is not necessarily fulfilling, right? And God wants us to have a fulfilled life. So it is, let's go back to the story. So after He created the earth, He created so many plants in there. He put so many fruits. He put different things. He put so many things that man could survive on. And when He did that, He created the grasses. He created different things, which the green that I will be using will be exemplifying. And let's not forget that He also put water in the Garden of Eden. So when He finished all of this, then He put man in the habitat. Remember when I was telling you that when He created the waters, He put the fishes and the aquatic animals in there because that was their natural habitat. That is where they were made to thrive and to survive, right? So He put man that was created for that He had created. He made that garden, and then He put man in the habitat because that was man's natural habitat, to know God, to serve Him. And I mean, this was taking place, right? Until one fruitful day, man was going about minding his business, and the serpent, who is the devil, he took the form of a serpent. Because if you know anything about if you know anything about life, you know that as human beings, we're not just human beings. There is a spirit possessing our bodies, and when there is an empty body, likewise, demons and foul spirits try to possess that body, right? So the snake was an empty body, and the devil went in there and used him and manipulated him, the serpent, for his own purpose, right? So man had been created to live in God's presence, in God's abode, but something that we should know and we should learn is that any moment that we are out of God's presence is the moment that the devil could use for his own purpose. And when the devil came, he told the woman, who was Eve, that because God had told the humans that He created, that is Adam and Eve, not to eat of a particular tree. Now, this is where I always find trouble, like find hard when I read the Bible, because I'm like, you were given every other tree. Why did you go to the one that was forbidden, right? But then there are so many lessons that we can learn from this. The first is that as human beings, sometimes we have that natural inclination to do the wrong thing. You know, have you ever experienced when they say maybe like, especially in school, this will happen in schools. When they say don't do this, that's when you want to do it, right? So I find that this is what was at play in the garden. God said, do not eat of this fruit. But then, sometimes in life, when our hearts are too bent on following our own passions or our own curiosity, we have to be careful, because our curiosity could lead us into disobedience in God's presence. God might be saying something, and then you are disobeying because you are too curious to a fault, right? And that was what happened to Eve. God had already told her, don't do this, and then the devil, being a master of manipulation, said, are you sure that God said you shouldn't eat of this tree? He wants to make you, he doesn't want you to be as wise as he is. And this particular portion of the Bible, whenever I read it, it teaches me something, that sometimes we're too far bent on chasing what we think we need. Meanwhile, it's just a want. We have to differentiate between what we want and what we need. We need God, we need his direction. But some in life there are some things that we don't need. Too much, like for instance, too much material possession that doesn't lead us anywhere. Most times we don't need it, but because we have not been able to differentiate between what we need and what we want, we go ahead chasing um possessions that we may never even get to enjoy. Some people spend their life chasing like material things, and they died. They never had it, right? But I digress. So going back to the story, she did this, and God, being an all-powerful being, knew, and he's like, he came to, and not only did she eat the fruit, she gave it to her husband, who was Adam. Now, here is the thing that this story teaches me when I read about Adam and Eve. Adam also knew what God had said, but his inability to say no put him into trouble. And is very that is very applicable to us in this day. There are a lot of us that, because we can't say no, are going to end up jeopardizing our lives, our future, just because we want to please others, or because we want to be seen in a certain light, that we don't even realize that what we're doing is harming us, it's going to put us in harm's way. So this was what Abraham did, and he just wanted to please his wife, and he went ahead and he ate the fruit. And after eating the fruit, just like any other sin in life, comes the repercussion. So this is the part that a lot of us human beings always find hard to live with. We always like to do a certain thing, but when we realize that, oh, it has repercussions, we have a hard time believing in it. But that is the way life works. So I'm using this dark green because I believe that it also represents some kind of vegetation, I would believe, but this is really, really, really dark. So I don't know, you can't really tell it's green, but it's kind of like a dark gray kind of green. But let's see, we're gonna make it work anyway. Okay, now that I see, I think it might not be green, so I'm just gonna place this green on top of it. So they disobeyed God, and when God came and asked, have you been eaten of the tree that I asked you not to eat? Remember, he's God, he's all-knowing, so he knew that they had disobeyed, and he came and asked. And this is the part where a lot of us get in trouble. We do something wrong, we can't even take accountability of what we did, and then instead of man to apologize and try to make amends, he went ahead and did the thing that most of us would have done: blame the person who gave you everything, the person who you disobeyed, right? And he goes and like, oh, you gave me this woman. Adam is like, you gave me this woman, and because of her that you gave me, I sinned, right? Not taking accountability that I disobeyed when you told me not to, right? So this made God furious, and he kicked them out. He was so angry, but before he kicked them out, he gave them the repercussion of their actions. And now I know sometimes in, like, when arguments come between, oh, why does God love us and still give us punishment and stuff like that? Everything we do in life has a repercussion, whether we know it or whether we don't know it. Even in the normal laws of humankind, even in our interaction, there are consequences for our action. So when we go ahead doing the wrong thing, whether you're a Christian or not, you get punished. So why do we think that when it comes to God, it should be different? If you believe that someone killed someone and they should go to prison, why do you believe that if you live a life that is not in line with God, you would go scot-free, right? However, God punished them. He sent them out, and then he told the woman that from now on, you would have pains when you give birth. Every single time you give birth, you're gonna have pains, and then your seed will crush the head of the serpent. And then she God punished the serpent, said, you shall crawl on your belly, because originally the serpent had hands and limbs, right? But he said, you will now crawl on your belly. And that is why we have this snake as it is today. However, he kicked them out of the garden, which was their natural habitat. But then, one beautiful thing about God is that he let his mercy go before them. Even though he was upset, even though he was angry, he still made sure that they were not going to go and suffer without his love there for them. Now, one particular thing I like about this part of reading Genesis is that it shows us that God has a very big heart. When he created us, before he created us, he already loved us. And because of his love, no matter what we do on this earth, as long as we are ready to give up the wickedness of our hearts, the things that we find pleasurable, which are wrong or evil, which, by the way, lots of things that we do actually harm us. And everything that God says we shouldn't do is actually to save us from ourselves. He doesn't benefit from it. If God says don't kill somebody, he's not the one benefiting from it. It's your fellow human being that is benefiting from it. You are also benefiting from it, because when you don't kill somebody, obviously you won't go to prison. When you don't steal, you won't go to prison. You won't pay the price. You are the one who benefits from it. So when God says don't do something, it's mostly for your benefit. But sometimes we are hardened in our hearts that we can't even see that that we are being asked to live is for our own good. So when they got kicked out of their natural habitat, they had to go the hard way and toil the ground for food, and struggle to get food and all that. So that is how they were kicked out from their natural habitat. However, the love of God still went before them and made it a lighter journey. It made the journey lighter and smoother for them, and somehow they were able to rebuild again. So this green also represents like darker leafy greens, like maybe I'm not sure of which green that is very dark, but maybe pumpkin leaf, I don't know, which I believe are part of the fruitfulness that we're in the garden. This could be leaves from any plant, which I believe could have been in the garden, right? And another thing that I like to imagine in the garden is that there was so much, there was light, there was so much beauty, the water was glistering and was clean. I like to imagine that it was clean water and it was glistering and it was very inviting, right? So when man disobeyed God, he gave up the right to his habitat. So what does that teach us again? It teaches us that whenever we go out of God, we lose when we leave God's presence, when we leave his sight, we basically end up struggling either to find something to fill us up, which is why we have all these other things that we're constantly searching for things to fill us up. And those things that we're looking for are the wrong things. They are the wrong things, and they are not meant for us, right? If we are rooted in God, we can find everything that is necessary for us. Now, what is necessary for you might not be what is necessary for me. So that is why we need to be rooted in God, because He is the original. He has the original blueprint. He knows what we would do that will make our lives better, what to help us walk in fullness. So that is why we need to go back to the blueprint. As Christians, as people who just want to learn about God, going to God is the best source. And we can do that through reading our Bibles. Our Bible teaches us the character of God, how He reacts, the things that He did. They're not just mere stories, they are actually lived experiences that actually happened. People's lived experiences that happened years ago that are still relevant to our life today. So, if you're here watching this video, and if you're going to watch this video, this is an encouragement to open your Bible and read your Bible. Now, I'm going to go in with a lighter green that I want to believe would have been some sort of glistering green for like some of the trees and plants that I believe would have had like brighter leafy greens, or the grass. Some grasses are darker than others, some are lighter. So I want to believe that this, and even the light reflection, the light rays from the sun, I want to believe that this is something that could have been in the garden, right? So I'm going to go ahead and grab a brush, and I'm going to be putting that green on the inner corner. I'm taking the light green that I used, I'm going to be touching it in here just a little bit, so that is slightly brighter than this one on the outer corner. Placing this here, and I'm just buffing it in. So I'm gonna be taking that, like, it's called Mermaid Tears. I don't know why, that's a funny name, but that's the name, Mermaid Tears. So I'm gonna be grabbing this Mermaid Tears, and I'm gonna be putting it on the inner corner of my eyes. So picking that one up. It's a very interesting shade. I'll just be putting it in here. I don't know why my camera doesn't really pick up glitter as much, but it's quite pigmented. I don't have green pigment. I feel like it would have made this whole look come together and pop really well. So I'm just putting this here and the inner corner. I'm going to be doing the exact same thing here. Now for the under eye, I will be doing something that I believe reflects the water that could have been in the Garden of Eden. You know, just when light hits the water and the rays are just glistering. I will be using a gold eyeshadow to illustrate that glistering of the water. The love of God transcends anything that we can imagine. It is His ultimate plan and His ultimate desire that we prosper and live in the world in happiness and in fullness. But we can find that prosperity if we are outside His presence, which is why we need to seek Him every day and get close to Him. And just like I said, reading your Bible gives you a little bit of clarity as to who He is. We cannot fully understand God, but we can have an idea of who He is, His character, the kind of thing that He wants us to do, how He intended us to live, and we can only do that in His presence. So, I'm thinking this green is almost there. I'm just going to touch up a little bit of gold pigment and I'm going to blend it all out, and I'm going to use it for that inner corner just because I feel like it's not popping the way I want it to pop. So I'm just going to put this just a little bit, touching it just here. Just in here. I'm hoping to give the green eyeshadow a little bit more depth. Just a little more depth. Now this looks like, a closer look, it kind of looks like water glistering with the light reflecting it. So let me know in the comment section, what have you learned from the story of Adam and Eve? What questions do you possibly have? Let us discuss this in the comment section. Personally, I have learned from the story of Adam and Eve that it is important to trust God with all your heart. Because when you read the Bible, when you go through the Bible, you see that He is a being that is very consistent. If He has told you to do something a certain way, it's because He knows the outcome. He is described as an omniscience God and an omnipotent God. He knows everything. Before He created us, He had a plan for us. He knew how we would be. He knew what we can do. He knows what we can't do, right? So He knows this before. So if He has said do something like this, it's because He knows the outcome, the possible outcome. So I've learned that when we disobey God, there are consequences. And those consequences, sometimes they are irreversible, because perhaps if Adam and Eve had gone back to God and asked Him for forgiveness, perhaps the story of the world would have been different today. But one thing I also learned is that pride will always go before a fall. You might ask, how were they proud? God had already cut them. He already knew that what they did was wrong. If they had actually said, "Oh, we are sorry, we did the wrong thing," like I said, our lives could have been different, right? But they went ahead to finger point. And I still find that this is relevant in our lives today as people, as people who believe, even those who don't believe. There is this thing in us that makes us not want to admit that we are wrong, which has always led us to trouble. When you're wrong, you have to admit that you are wrong, because it's in doing so that you will learn, you would make amends, and that you would if especially when you hurt someone, you can give them that give them the opportunity to forgive you, right? And not to bear and hold a grudge against you. If you've made a mistake, admit that you made a mistake and get help. Because sometimes our failure to admit that we are wrong and that we made a mistake is probably the reason why we might end up in life going through a certain season or a certain time in our life when we are basically, it feels like we're just going in circles, and it's because we didn't admit that we're wrong. If Adam and Eve had admitted they were wrong, perhaps they would have gotten like a, who knows, they might have gotten like a softer punishment, and they wouldn't have been kicked out of the Garden of Eden, right? But they made him so angry and they got kicked out. So, if you didn't learn anything from here, just learn this today. When you're wrong, admit that you're wrong and try to make amends, right? Especially when you wrong somebody, it is not your right for them to forgive you. No, when you've wronged somebody, you automatically lose the right to you actually lose the right to to negotiate or anything. I mean, you can negotiate, but it's basically in their power to forgive you, right? So if you made a mistake, always go back and say you're sorry. Also, this story also teaches me that I need God more than I know. We all need God more than we know, because is in Him that we find purpose, is in Him that we find strength when we're in doubt, is in Him that we have meaning. The world these days is just searching endlessly for meaning, and that is why a lot of people are putting their hand into the wrong thing. They are doing the wrong things because they are looking for that meaning. Just like when the fish is taken out of water, right? It needs water to survive. When it's taken out of water, it can survive. And that's the same thing with us human beings. When we are taken out of God's presence, we cannot survive. We need Him. We need His wisdom. We need His guidance. We need it. We we yearn for it. That's how it's supposed to be. And whenever we are stubbornly doing anything else or looking for anything else to fill it, we always feel that insatiability. Always feel that I need something to fill me up. I need something to fill me up. That is why some people might even end up abusing drugs. They might end up in different negativity, homosexuality, different things that are not God's way. Because again, when you read that Genesis story, you would see that God actually had a design, a plan for how life should be, not like what we have today. It's not like what we have today. He's planned for things, not defrauding people, not starving people, not being greedy, not stealing, not killing, right? These were all his plans for us. But because we have left his presence, that is why we keep doing all these things, especially because we're looking for that thing to fill us up. So if you're somebody who has gone out of his presence, like the Garden of Eden, when God forgave them, they stuck to God, right? When God forgave Adam and Eve outside the garden, because they had already been kicked out of the garden, so that mistake could not have been undone. But he still did he still had mercy upon them, and treated them with kindness. He made their burden light. He made life easier for them. It's the same thing for us. If we are able to go back to Him to ask Him for His forgiveness, if we are able to go back and say, this, I made this mistake, I have never known you, I want to know you, I need to know this person that I always hear people talk about, this God, I want to know Him for myself. If we are able to seek Him out, we will find Him, but we have to be able to seek Him out. So now I'm going back into this look. I will just be finishing it up. I've done everything. The eyeshadow, this corner, with this one, it looks like light reflection on the water that was in the garden. This looks like, this represents the earth. Sorry, the brown represents the earth. The green represents the richness of the vegetation, the grass, the crops. So yeah, it represents the fruitfulness that was there in place. Now I'm just gonna put my liner and this look will be done. So to do my liner, I'm gonna grab a mirror and I'm going to be making this black to finish it up. I'm just going to be doing this to finish it up. And okay. I love the way this looks. I don't usually do green, but I think this is nice. This you can wear out. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do this one the exact same way. And to do my liner, I like to have my hands as still as possible because this is what will get it looking clean. And getting a thin brush also helps. I like to use a thin brush for my eyeliner, but if you find that you are good with the glitter liner, that works too. I would recommend using a flat brush to apply your glitter liner. So I'm just pulling this out at the corner here and pulling it back in. Okay. Okay. Nice. Okay. So this is looking good already. Okay. I think it looks nice. And to top this off, I will be using my I just gotta clean this part, guys. Okay. Okay. Well, if you read the Bible, you will get further depth to the story of Adam and Eve. You will see it in a very beautiful light. So I encourage you to read the story of Adam and Eve. And if you've read the story, what stands out for you? What message or what lesson about Adam and Eve stands out for you? You may have a different perspective that I have never heard or never thought about. Please do share in the comment section. And keep on watching. So this eyeshadow look is done. I'm just going to be taking a brown liner and I will be lining the inner corner, the under of my eye, sorry. I'll be lining the under of my eyes just to complete the look. Just here, lightly lining it. And to do the circle this here. And to finish this look, I'm going to be taking that glitter yellow, or is it glitter? Yeah, the glitter gold liner. And I will be using this just to reinforce that glistering water. The glistering water. Okay. The Bible also tells us that those of us who thirst shall be satisfied. Now, the thirst isn't just the thirst for water, it's the thirst for God. It's the thirst for God. If you thirst for God and you genuinely are interested in finding Him, you will be satisfied. So, I hope this video encourages you to thirst for God because He's waiting to satisfy you. Now, as a tradition, I'm going to be using the green to do my blush. So whenever I do like my color themes, I try to keep to the color for my blush. So this is what I'm going to be doing for this as well. So this is what I am doing. Just placing it here. But for the lipstick, I will be using just a regular nude lipstick. I'm just placing this here. This is a very weird color for a blush, but it's okay. We're sticking to the theme. I'm interested in how this would look in a picture. But okay. We're being true to our green theme. So I'm just going to be feathering it out. And then I'm going to go to the side. So I'm just doing the same for here. This is interesting. This is by far the funniest blush I have done. Like, what? Well, we're gonna trust the process, right? A green blush, how absurd. I'm going to feather this side out. I look like I was beaten by the chick. Oh boy. Anyways, guys. this look is almost there. I'm just going to be taking my powder and setting the rest of my face. I always do this in my tutorials. If you have been here a couple of times, you know I like to set my face. This is important because it sets and keeps everything in place. And I'm going to go back with my beauty blender. I'm going to reinforce my under eye so that I can distinctly tell because this green blush is taking everything away from it. Remember to always tap it out, place it in, and blend out any harsh lines. So I'm just doing this, finishing it up. Guys, the green blush is ridiculous, but hey, what do I know? I'm staying true to this, guys. I'm staying true to this. So I'm going to be getting like a bronzer and placing it just on top of that blush. Let's see, where's my bronzer? So I'm thinking that this is going to be ridiculous with like green lipstick. I'm just going to look like a funny character, so I'm just going to be using my bronzing drops and blending it all out. I'm going to just be dabbing it and then placing it here. I think that diffused out the green just a little bit. Green is so thick I can barely see the bronzer, but I'm gonna try again. Okay. Just touching this here lightly. I'm touching the forehead. I'm just pressing it in. Now I will be taking a pencil and I'll be drawing my lip. So I'm going to just be putting the gloss on this. And for this I'm going to be using this. Oh, I genuinely think that my cheeks look like I've been beaten up. Guys, this is hilarious. I'm just going to take that blush and I'm just going to diffuse this out. I can't take this. This blush is ridiculous, so I'm just going to use like an orange blush or like some peach blush. Just placing it on that. Okay, this made it a little much better. All right, and this green makeup look is done. Just emphasize on that orange just a little more. And there you have it, guys. This cute makeup look is done. Applying the mascara. I will be applying the mascara, and this Garden of Eden eyeshadow will be done. So I hope you guys learned something from my story. I hope we inspire someone to look at the Bible, read the Bible. Am I even saying the truth? You can only know when you read the Bible. So go read the Bible, find out the truth, and let's come and discuss. Alrighty. Okay. So guys, if you love this video, give this video a thumbs up. Let me spray my face so that this look can come together. Getting my fan. I need to fan this in place. Alright. There you have it, guys. And this is the final look. I hope you liked this tutorial and come back for more for my makeup looks, makeup tutorial. Come and learn one thing or two. It could be makeup, it could be something else. Today you learned the Bible. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye.